I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is Skeletales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
Alissa, you know when you're laying in bed and you look to your open doorway and there's a huge, dark shadow figure looming there and you think, Grandma, is that you? Nope, it is not your grandma. Also, it is not the shadow of yourself. It is just your good pal, Hat Man. Remember him?
I remember. Is he really a shadow person?
Absolutely. Like the number one shadow person. Like he tops the charts for shadow people.
What if my grandma really enjoyed wearing hats? How do I roll this out?
Well, depends. Does she also wear a trench coat?
Yes.
Damn it. Then maybe it is Grandma.
What are we talking about today, Britt?
Today we are talking about shadow people.
Do we always talk about shadow people, though?
Actually, pretty regularly. But also,
we tell true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal. Dun, dun, dun. Dun.
Do you remember a few weeks ago when we were interviewing Andy and he told us about the shadow people he saw, the one in the forest and the one in his bedroom when he was a teenager?
Yes.
It totally sparked my interest all over again for Hatman and shadow people, and I've been obsessing about it a little. So I want to talk about shadow people.
Shadow people. Andy's response to shadow people, like he was telling us a personal experience about how as a child, a man in a hat, a shadowy man in a hat would be present in his bedroom and it freaked him out. And then you informed him that your niece Sunshine had the same experience happening. And he was so shook because he didn't know that like Hat Man was a thing and that other people have seen this exact same entity. And so that was pretty compelling to me, I suppose. But otherwise, man, shadow people, not my jam at
not
all.
Your jam?
I had a lot of trouble getting motivated to research this phenomena. Hat Man is its own entity, but otherwise it's like your UFOs.
Where you instantly just shut down and you're like, no.
I didn't instantly. I just like I don't care. I don't know. I just don't find them interesting. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
You don't find Hatman interesting?
Hatman
I'm glad you mentioned UFO. We'll circle back to UFO because some people do think shadow people might be UFOs. Oh, wait, not flying objects. They might be extraterrestrials.
There's a lot of theories. So, okay, I do have like one tale of a first-person encounter with a shadow person. It's got a little bit of everything. And then you're going to be real mad at me. I'm going to bring the skepticism hard.
Oh, shit.
Not skepticism, but explanations, possibly. Should I save that for the end or the beginning?
Should.
Okay, I'll save
it for the end because I think that's why I'm so fascinated by it is there's no solid explanation of who the hell these creature feature shadows are.
Well, I did reach out to like Reddit to ask that question because I'm like, what are shadow people? I almost don't feel like Hat Man is a shadow person. He seems like his own like cryptid entity or something because he's got like glowing red eyes and
sometimes he has glowing red eyes.
But then other shadow people just seem like kind of flitting quick, like a very brief presence. Others are looming. So I went on to Reddit and I asked, what are shadow people? Have you seen one? And how do they form? And one person, he says they form from impurities in the soul. It requires a lot of impurities to become physical. And then he says, cleanse thy soul. So I said, so you think they're a manifestation of a living being, like this negative energy? And he's like, nah, I'm just a gamer. I'm the wrong person to talk to. Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. So if you have like a lot of negative energy or something, it kind of like coalesces in this shadowy figure that follows you. One person told me to shut up. So that was a real helpful one.
Cool.
And then another person said they're people who are trapped in the shadow realm, but learned how to become one with the shadow, thus becoming a shadow person.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one yet.
But I don't even know what the
Interesting.
shadow realm is, and
I
how do
don't
you
know
get
what the
stuck
shit
there?
that
Like,
is.
that's not an
Yeah.
explanation.
It just
So,
leads to more questions.
right? Okay. And then the final one that I really enjoyed was their brief glimpses into parallel dimensions. The fabric of space-time ripples, and you catch glimpses of what lies beyond.
Ooh. So I did a little research. I found some info online, not on Reddit.
Okay.
Not saying it was a crazy credible source. It was Ranker. Don't know if you've been on there before.
Ranker, 100%
But
legit.
100%. They say that there are several types of shadow figures out
Okay.
there. So I'm going to list off a few for you.
Okay.
Number one, top of the list, of course, Hat Man. If anybody wants to hear more about Hat Man, they can go to episode 34 called Hat Man and the White Lady, or maybe just Hat Man, White Lady. I don't remember what I called it. But we talk more about Hat Man in that episode. He's the most famous. He's typically described as a faceless, dark man in an overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat or fedora who watches silently from doorways. That's generally what the thousands of people have seen Hat Man doing. Okay, then there's the sleep paralysis shadow figure. This one is way more scary and has the feeling that they're going to cause harm. People have reported being beaten, choked, picked up, and dropped by an aggressive shadow. These beings usually don't look much different from the normal shadow person. They're featureless, human-shaped entities, but they harbor serious ill will. And then there's the hooded shadow figure, which I hadn't heard of until reading about this. And this shadow figure appears to be wearing like a hooded cloak or some kind of hoodie. You've heard of this?
I've heard of the hooded one. Yeah, the hooded shadow figure.
But unlike Hatman, they seem to give off a more sinister feeling than just watching you. Which leads to the next one, which is the Watchman shadow figures. They watch humans and they don't care if you like it or not. This shadow person isn't particularly imposing. It won't attack you. But according to witnesses, there's just something viscerally creepy about the way they lurk around. There's misty shadow people, which I don't know if this counts as shadow people because they're not actually in the shape of people form. They're more like a smoky, shadowy mist that kind of moves in like an intelligent way. So it'll usually like flit and move, not like typical smoke would. So then there's the shadow animals, which I love this one. They're tricky to spot because they're low to the ground and they move very quickly. There are, however, some shadow cats, similar to real cats, that aren't afraid to make life difficult for people or animals that they don't like. I just love the idea of a shadow cat fucking around with people.
I've heard about the shadow animals too. I've heard about it only because I researched it for this episode.
I know, we were
but before today.
reading.
Yeah.
And then, similar to Andy's, there's the forest shadow people. They watch silently from the shadows without so much as breaking a twig. They're believed to be guardians of the forest, and they're generally perfectly happy to follow and watch without causing any harm. So, yeah, those are like, you know, a list of the different types of shadow people that are out there that, like, it's a really broad term. You've got your, like, shadow cat, and then you have a mist, and then you have a very descriptive hat man who wears only this particular type of hat, maybe one other type of hat. So it's, I don't know. It's so fascinating.
I think there was one too that was like the dark lady, and that might be the same one. That's the hooded figure.
Oh, maybe.
But I don't know. I mean, how many ways can you describe a shadow? That's
dark.
They're just dark.
Okay, so I wanted to get a lot of first-person stories. So I ran over to my favorite place for that, which is next door, and I put out a call if people had seen any shadow people or had any experiences, and it was awesome. Kind of like Andy, there were a lot of people on there who were like, whoa, this has happened to other people, awesome. And I'm sharing a lot of stories from there, and then also some extra. But before I do that, a little bit of history about shadow people, shadow figures, they were first documented back in ancient Egypt as early as 600 BCE. And
What?
the ancient Egyptians called them Kailbut. I did that with perfect pronunciation. And they have been witnessed around the world, spanning through time and cultures. In ancient Islamic theology, they're known as jinn, which we have also talked about briefly on the episode. And in Native American culture, it's known by Nalusa Cheeto. So this is not just like, oh, this happened since the 80s and it only happens in America. No, this is like spanning through forever. Okay, so when I was in Oregon visiting my family last month, I was talking about shadow people and how I was really interested in talking about it on the podcast. And my brother John, I don't know if you remember John, he is the one who had the poltergeist in the apartment that hung out in the bathroom a lot.
Oh, I remember John. Are you talking to the listeners? Yes, John, one of your 27 siblings. Oh. Yes.
Exactly. So he jolted when I started talking about this. And he goes, oh my God, I have an experience with a shadow figure. And the house that we grew up in Texas, the one where I saw my ghosts, where Rooney saw the shadow over in the skylight, where Brian had, everybody had some experiences in this house. He's laying in his bed and he gets sleep paralysis. He wakes up and there's this dark shadow looming over him, pressing on his chest. Textbook sleep paralysis, right? So then he's like fighting off this like paralysis. He's like pushing and he's like trying harder and harder to get this shadow to release him. And his eyes are open. He's looking at it. And then finally the shadow releases him. This is where it gets weird. So after he's released, the shadow sticks around and the shadow is just looming there. But John's been released from this paralysis. So he jumps up. The shadow is still in the bedroom and he starts chasing this shadow. And he chases it to the bedroom door, which leads out to the backyard. And the thing melts through the wall to the backyard. John throws open the door, runs to the backyard, and the shadow vanishes.
What?
Now, when researching shadow people, it's almost half of them are just sleep paralysis stories. Oh yeah, the shadow pushing on my chest. I have never once heard of a shadow sticking around after it's like someone's come out of sleep paralysis before. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Or hunting them down. I actually did read many accounts of people rushing the shadow though and racing at it, not coming from the sleep paralysis. Cause yeah, you're right. Like tons of them are sleep paralysis experiences, but like the Hatman or whatever, they're standing at the door and the only way to get rid of them is to like yell at them or rush at them and run at them, which like,
nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope.
I'm like
Count
hiding under
I'll
the
be
bed.
I'll be the one to just maybe like, hide under the covers or like whisper, please go away.
Yeah. Well, what was John hoping to do? What was he going to do when he tackled it? It's a shadow.
I think it was one of those like fight or flight things, where it's like,
so he's fighting.
He was attacked and he like, instead of like retreating and putting his head under the covers, he like fought. It was like just instinctual to like, I don't know. Dude.
Is he also a sleep fighter? Like, will he punch you in his sleep while he's sleeping? I've been known to do that.
I don't think so.
I'll fuck
really?
you up. If you try to wake me up. I am a violent sleeper. So do you think that entity, the shadow, was related to the jackalope or the chupacabra or whatever the other Texas,
there
like the same entity?
So much bizarre shit happening around the land there and at that particular house. I think it's very possible.
I wonder if it's the same ghost or a different one, or maybe like sometimes it can just muster enough energy to like actually form a complete figure.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's just a shadow.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I have another one.
All right.
I have another one. This is not a sleep paralysis one, but it is a shadowy person-y one. Okay. Ken wrote in, lives in my neighborhood. He says, I'd like to tell you more about our ghost. It started years ago when our youngest child was about 9. She's now 35. The TV in our bedroom is about 4 feet to the right of the bedroom door. There's a hallway that goes toward our bedroom and then turns and goes past the furnace, hot water heater into my son's bedroom. I used to sit on the bed in our bedroom and play video games on that TV. Every once in a while, I'd see a dark figure walk down the hall and turn towards my son's bedroom. I'd say, "Hi, Joshua," but there would be no answer. I'd get up and look around, but there was never anyone there. I also thought maybe the dog was walking by. She was a big black dog and could have made the hallway look darker, but she would be somewhere else. This happened during the day and at night for me, but most of all, our sightings, as far as I know, have happened in the daytime. This hasn't been some ghostly, strange figure or shadows in the dark of the night kind of a thing. About a year of seeing something walk the hallway, I asked our youngest daughter, who was about 9 at the time, if she ever saw anyone in the hall, and she said, "Oh yeah, I see him all the time." And she said he was a tall man with a long coat and a big hat. Later, I asked our oldest daughter if she ever saw anyone, and she said yes. She said she would see him standing in the doorway, going from the living room into the hallway. He would just stand there looking at her when she was in the living room or kitchen. You can see the hallway from the kitchen. She never said anything for fear of what others would say. Then I asked my wife, and she has seen him too, but she has seen him in the doorway and elsewhere. She describes him the same way: tall man, long coat, big hat. Our son and second daughter used to make fun of the rest of us for believing we saw a ghost. My son would say, "Well, if he walks towards my bedroom, why haven't I seen him?" Our second daughter, however, she moved home after being gone for a few years. One day when she was coming in from the garage, and she saw him. When you come in from the garage, you enter the kitchen. You can see through the kitchen, through the living room, and into the hallway. She saw him standing in the doorway from the living room into the hallway. He was standing there looking at her. She described the same way as my other 2 daughters and wife. She saw him several times afterwards. 2 months ago, we were talking to our neighbor, and for some reason, her daughter mentioned ghosts. We told them about ours and what he looked like. They said that was really strange because the lady across the street had warned them about a strange man that she'd seen standing by our bedroom window several times. She said that he was a tall man with a long coat and a big hat. Now, we're fairly smart people. I was a semiconductor manufacturing engineer for the last 12 years. I worked in failure analysis and defect reduction. It was my job to look at problems and solve them, usually using microscopes or electron microscopes. I'm really good at seeing problems and figuring things out. He says, "You can come over and talk. But he's a friendly ghost, and we like having him around. We're used to things being moved and hearing doors opening and closing. We don't want to do anything to anger or scare him. We don't want to do anything that might also invite other spirits." And that was from Ken.
Ken, very science-based answer too.
Yes.
And he's in Austin, right? You said these are all from Austin?
Yeah, he's in Austin. He even gave me his address. So, I mean, I can
he gave you his home address? You can we could go to a stakeout. Look for the Hat Man.
Dark-coated hat figure staring into your bedroom fucking window.
Like, part of me, when you were telling me this, what was that? Is it the doorway phenomena or the new room phenomena? Part of me thinks maybe like Hat Man just like can't remember what he wants. That's why he stops at the doorway. He's like, "I'm going to go in this room," and oh fuck.
What was it? I need it again.
What did I don't remember. Oh yeah, I'm going to scare the shit out of this little kid. That's right. Now I remember. So everyone in the family saw that one. That's interesting.
Everyone, I think, except for the son, whose bedroom the Hat Man
was going into. So that maybe supports this idea that it's like an outside manifestation of an individual. Like somehow when he goes to sleep, the Hat Man wakes up.
That would only make sense if the son constantly wore coats and hats. I don't know.
Well, maybe it's his alter ego.
What got me was the shadow on the outside of the house peering into the bedroom window. No. Like it almost
Oh,
seems
that was
creepier.
outside the house looking in? I thought she was saying it was
neighbor.
like in the bedroom and looking out. I thought she could see it in the house.
No, the neighbor saw the Hat Man on the outside of the house looking into their window, which for some reason that feels way creepier than him lurking in the doorway. They're both creepy. I can't say one is more than the other.
The Hat Man specifically, like, I don't know, man. What does he want? Like the idea that we are a planet that has been seeded and we're just like, there is some entity observing us, or like another dimension is observing us. And the Hat Man is like the Men in Black or whatever. Like, because he has a briefcase sometimes and stuff too, right?
Sometimes he has a briefcase, sometimes a pocket watch.
Oh, what is it? He's just because he's just observing. I mean, he's scaring the shit out of people when they actually see him. Or these guys didn't seem so bothered. They're just like,
well, Ken always thought it was their like cowboy ghost, where it's he's just hanging around. He's a good old boy. Like because the trench coat and the big hat. They always thought it was maybe just like a old timey rancher.
So I had someone tell me. Yeah, I had someone tell me the same thing, that they just thought it was the ghost that was haunting their house. He says, I don't know if this counts, but my house is haunted, and sometimes in the middle of the night, a tall man stands in the middle of my doorway, but it's like a shadow. I've never seen a face, just the outline of a tall man wearing a hat. And I was like, dude, this is like, that's terrifying. So like, I've known two other people like personally now who've had this happen, and it's a thing. I was like, this is a thing. It's the Hat Man. And he's like, I don't know if it's the Hat Man. I know an old dude died in this house, so it's probably him, but it is very terrifying. I've gotten sort of used to it now. I just kind of tell him to go away, and he does.
I love it.
Okay. So my story is not about the Hat Man. And this one has a little bit of everything. So the first thing you must understand is that my family is pretty fucking dysfunctional, and my parents encouraged us kids to engage in constant power struggles and political, quote unquote, political shenanigans with each other. So when my sister Shelly and I were taking the dog for a late night walk through the subdivision, the thought of that our sister might be trailing us in the darkness, plotting some sort of revenge, was completely normal. Our other sister, Nikki, was currently on the outs, and she was not being terribly rational. Keep in mind that everyone involved are teens at this point, and were no way acting mature. So I was keeping my eyes and ears peeled for any rustling in the bushes or dark figures darting across dimly lit roads. I wasn't seeing anything, and Poochie wasn't alerting on anything either. But we knew we were being followed, and were eager to catch Nikki at it so we could tease and bully her for it. Maybe. I don't know. Not real sure what the motivations were anymore, but it would have ended in more fighting. So we decided to lay a trap of sorts. The entrance to our gated subdivision T-bones the main road and is well lit compared to the rest of the neighborhood. There is no way Nikki could remain hidden over there. So Shelly, Poochie, and I head down the road toward the gates. The multitude of streetlights threw multiple shadows off of us, and we promptly started stomping on each other's shadow heads. I know. I'm going to take a real quick diversion. Do you know what they're doing? They're like, they see each other's shadows and they're fighting and they're
stomping. No, will you explain?
Okay. Like the street lights are illuminating their shadows on the ground. And so they're fighting each other.
So they're like moving their arms and stuff where their shadows look like they're battling. Okay.
I was doing that with Odin one time. At this rest stop up in the mountains, and we were fighting each other's shadows, and we're like punching each other. And I ended up punching him right in the face because I was focusing so much on the shadows. So it was from an outside observer. There was like people around. It looked like this fully grown woman just punched a kid right in the face. I punched him. I clocked him. This little like 5-year-old right in the face. So beware with the shadow fighting. He thought it was funny. Thank God.
And
but
this is just him and his one other sibling are shadow fighting?
Yeah. So they're walking. They think they're being stalked. They're trying to lay a trap. They're fighting with their shadows. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So they noticed a lone shadow to our rear. Aha. It must be Nikki. I started shouting abuse towards what I thought was her location. Actually, where was she standing? Every other person is scattering 3 to 4 shadows. How is she just throwing one and was seemingly that close to us? I kind of herded the shadow back by trying to stomp on it while I continued to taunt my sister into revealing herself. The shadow melds into the darkness, and Shelly suddenly starts yelling at Nikki too, but she was facing a different direction. She was approaching the gate and swearing with the dog on full alert. I was so confused. Nikki could have never made it that distance if she was also the shadow that evaded my efforts to squish it. And, in fact, where the heck was she? Shelly continued towards the gate with the dog pulling, yelling at something to stop being weird, and I couldn't see what that something was. She reached the gates and suddenly turns and sprints back to my location. She tells me to run. I'm confused, but we blitzed out of there. We are almost home when I heard the distinct sound of a person running behind us. I turn, and it was Nikki. Her eyes are huge. She was freaked out and did not want to be left alone. This was very unusual behavior because she could not stand us before this. As we walked the rest of the way home, my sisters share what frightened them. To start, yes, Nikki was following us and was terribly upset with us. Where the road to the gate meets the main road, there were a bunch of large bushes. She had decided to hide in there and fume as she watched us dick around on the well-lit road. When I started yelling at her, she almost stood up to start a fight, but realized I wasn't facing the right direction. And then she watched Shelly trot off in the complete opposite direction to her while also yelling at her. She decided to see how this played out. Then both of us turned and run towards and then past her hiding place. So she waited a beat because she fully intended to stalk us more when she heard another set of footsteps run past her hiding spot. She saw a singular shadow of a person flat on the road running in the direction of Shelly and I. At this point, she freaked the fuck out and rejoined us. So on to what happened with Shelly. Shelly saw Nikki. She saw Nikki perched on the entry pad on the other side of the gate. Nikki seemed extra pale and had this deranged smile on her face. As she and the dog were heading towards Nikki, Nikki never moved a muscle or seemed to react in any way. The dog was very pleased. Nope. The dog wasn't pleased. Opposite. The dog was very agitated and was straining on the leash to get at this person. My sister passed 2 lots to reach Nikki, never taking her eyes off her sister, who was smiling at her from the other side of the gate. And then she simply wasn't there anymore. At that point, she turned heel and ran. So yeah, not sure what was up with all this. It wasn't the first time Nikki's doppelganger decided to show itself. I'm not sure if the shadow person and the doppelganger were the same thing. So I didn't see the doppelganger, but both Shelly and the dog were keen on the same empty spot in the space. I honestly thought that my shitty night vision simply wasn't doing me any favors until both of them freaked out and ran off. So yeah, weird shit, yo.
Alissa, that story has fucking everything. We got shadows. We got doppelgangers. We got the mimic ghost thing.
Wait, what's the mimic ghost? Doppelganger?
Like the mimic one. I talked about it last week, where it's like they mimic the audio mimic. But I mean, this one is like doppelganger. I don't know. It's so good. It's so good.
I know it had a little bit of everything. The shadow running with footsteps, that's a pretty creepy. Like, I'm not super like the whole shadow person thing. I'm like, I don't know how convinced I am. If I saw that, I'd be pretty freaked out. It almost seems like the doppelganger turned into a shadow, right? Or like they disappeared and then attacked. Like,
what is going on? Like, Nikki did have like some malevolent intentions.
You're right. She did.
And so maybe it just embodied that
like
evil doing thing, like your one commenter had said.
Yeah, the negative energy she was feeling like manifested in this creepy ass doppelganger and a shadow.
Oh my God, the twisted smile. I don't like it.
No, the twisted smile staring right at you. Eye contact, direct eye contact, and a twisted smile. No. But what was the point? Just to scare the shit out of them? They didn't get him, right? Like, I don't get these things. It's like because they want to seem to want to interact with whoever they're appearing to in some way, but never really like do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the doppelganger, it doesn't say that Nikki died. So apparently, or anybody died here as far as
But
seeing
Nikki didn't see, well, she saw the shadow, I guess, but she didn't see herself sitting on the wall with the twisted smile.
Is that the deal with the doppelganger? You have to see your own doppelganger to die? So someone else seeing your doppelganger isn't
You're
the same?
fine. You're fine.
You're in the clear.
But if you see your own.
These are the rules. I got to post the rules of the doppelgangers so I can remember all these rules. Yeah, so that's my story. Do you have another one?
I have several. All right.
Oh my God.
So Jimmy and I spoke on the phone.
Oh, okay.
This is how excited Jimmy was to tell his story. And also for me to hear his story.
Was Jimmy the engineer who saw the Hat Man in his house?
That was Ken.
Okay, so now we're on the phone with Jimmy. Okay.
On the phone with Jimmy, also from next door. He saw his first shadow person when he was just 3 years old. He had gotten in trouble and his mom sent him to his room. So he runs to his room, he jumps on his bed, he puts the blanket under his head, and then he hears something in the room. So he pulls the blanket out from over his head and he sees Hat Man. He's standing on the opposite wall, standing there staring at him, the shadow figure wearing a hat. He says 40 years later, and he can still vividly remember what he looks like and how he felt. He was wearing a suit and a wide brim hat, and he got the feeling that he was kind of from the 20s, that vibe of what he looked like.
Like a zoot suit?
Yeah. And then,
I can picture that.
Wearing the hat too. Then for a moment, he sees his shadow standing next to the Hat Man's shadow. And at that point, he yells for his mom. Mom! Him and his mom and his sister come in. He points to the wall where he sees the shadow man and his own shadow, and they don't see anything. And this happened during the day. This isn't a nighttime thing, similar to Ken that happened in the day. So then Jimmy says that throughout his whole life, the Hat Man has been around, all through his childhood, into his teens. And then he said when he was around 20, he moved out away from this town and into, I think he said it was New Mexico or something. And he didn't see Hat Man until recently. Hat Man has started appearing to him again. So one of the things we talked about is I said, well, Hat Man tends to appear when there are highly emotional things happening in someone's life, maybe some trauma, and he is floored by this. He goes, yes, every single time. He said his parents divorced when he was 2 years old. And right shortly before Hat Man appeared, his mom had remarried, and it was all very emotional for him. And he said no traumatic experience happened during his teens, but then just being a teenager is highly emotional. So he kind of thinks maybe that's why he saw it in his teens. And then recently he's been going through some life issues. He mentioned a divorce he's going through, and lo and behold, Hat Man is appearing in his life once again. So one of the things that he had said, though, is that he gets the feeling from Hat Man that it's more of like a comfort, like Hat Man's kind of showing up just to like check in on him. And he gets the impression that he's very intelligent. I actually made the mistake of being like, I think Hat Man just watches people. I don't know that he's an intelligent being. And he was like, I'm not going to do this, but like I would hit somebody if they said that to me.
Oh my
like,
God.
Oh,
threatening.
I know. He was like,
yeah, because that's a jump. I kind of agree with Jimmy. I'm like, if he's observing, he seems like the Hat Man's like documenting. He's observing. Yeah. He's documenting. He's not, or he maybe just did forget something, whatever he was doing. He's like, you think that's what he's doing, just standing?
He's thinking real hard. So you and Jimmy might get along because he thinks that because it feels so intelligent to him that it almost seems extraterrestrial, like it can't be from this planet. Yes. And he also told me several other haunted stories, which I will tell another day. Ooh. But keep Jimmy in the back pocket because we'll hear more from him. But I thought it was really cool. Most of the time, Hatman would appear during the day for him, which I always envisioned it being like a nighttime spooky. But the fact that he's showing up in the daytime is pretty cool too.
Well, because a daytime shadow man makes more sense than a lot of shadow people to me, because if you're already in a dark room, how are you seeing a shadow, right? But yeah, no, a lot. I saw a lot of those too, that they're happening during the middle of the day and they're just chilling there. I like Jimmy's theory that it's extraterrestrial. I don't know.
I thought you might.
I mean, if Hatman does exist, if he's a real thing, right? Then what is he doing? Because everyone's seeing him. So many people see him. They don't know everyone's seeing him. So either an interdimensional traveler, like someone had said, kind of combining all the theories, or an alien visitor checking up on their progeny.
I think that we talked about this briefly, how it was like if an alien's coming to this planet, they're like, what would a human wear? Oh, a hat for sure. I've got to put on the hat.
It does.
And then, we've got to hide these weird bodies we have. Let's put on this coat to hide our strange shadowy figure. You know, what would a human dress like? Oh, they carry briefcases for sure. Let's carry one of those.
Yeah, like the cheap disguise. Well, and then is this also, I don't know if you stumbled upon it, like, are the theories like Men in Black, the Men in Black that came and legitimately, apparently they were a thing when the UFOs in the 40s or something were a phenomena and the government gave money to investigate it, that Men in Black would show up, their suits and interview people. But is the Hatman also considered like a man in black? Like, is this...
It has been mentioned. It has been mentioned. But I think Men in Black literally come in the form of humans.
They're humans.
Like people are, it's not just the shadow. They're like seeing these and talking and, interacting with these human.
Maybe it's like astral projection. Maybe it's still the Men in Black, but they have like, the CIA did some of those like, MK Ultra. They actually like put money towards like remote viewing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they're like, nope, doesn't work. But what if it did? It's just the NSA.
That's not nearly as fun. I don't like that. What are they getting?
I don't know.
So the rest of mine, I've got like 4 tiny little bite-sized stories. So do you want to tell yours and then I can... Oh, wait, but you've got a good finisher, huh?
Yeah, mine are just going to shit on everything you've said. Basically, all my stories are just going to be like...
Okay, so should I tell the real believable ones and then you can doo-doo on it all? All the rest of these come from people in my neighborhood. These are all next door. First person experiences here. Bonnie writes in, she says, I saw a shadow man when I was in my early 20s. I'd just been diagnosed with cancer and was sitting in my bedroom one day. I stood up to leave my room when I stopped in my tracks. A very tall shadow man with a fedora hat was standing in the hallway in the door frame looking at me. No facial features, just a solid black shadow. I was stunned enough to simply sit down on my bed for a few minutes with my eyes closed. When I looked again, he was gone. And this corroborates with the traumatic life experiences. Just diagnosed with cancer, Hatman shows up.
Are you ready for me to shit on your stories?
Damn it. No, I'm going to tell another one.
All right.
Okay. This is from Beth. She says, my husband and I have both seen this Hatman appear, a shadowy figure of a man wearing a hat of some kind, sometimes wearing a hood, standing at various heights, so it's not like it's the same every time. I've also seen shadow people walk in front of my headlights while I'm driving, sometimes back where we used to live. When I freak out and hit the brakes, there's no one there. My husband and I have seen them at the same time, too. I thought that one was interesting because it's more than one person seeing Hatman. Like Jimmy's instance, he was like, look, Bob, the Shadow Man. And she didn't see it. But... Yeah,
no, multiple people seeing him, that I can't really shit on that. That's an abnormal.
That's what's kind of cool about the story you told was that they saw it, the other sister, and then both other sisters saw it too.
Yeah.
Corroboration. Okay, this one is from Megan. She says, I saw a shadow person as a young child at the foot of my bed, just standing there. I would close my eyes tight or cover my head with the covers and pray. I was scared. This happened a few times, then it progressed to sitting on my bed. One night, I sensed the shadow put their hands around the sides of my head. I told my mom, and she got the house blessed. Apparently, my older sister had mentioned that she'd had something happen similar. I never saw it again after that. Later, my mom told me she believed that it was her mother who was watching over us.
Aww.
Now, I asked Meg, and I was like, did you think it was your grandmother? And she goes, absolutely not. No, my grandmother would not terrify me like that.
Right?
Like, that was so freaky because it's one thing when you see the shadow from the doorway and it's like, oh, that's a scary thing in the shadows. When the thing is sitting on your bed or placing hands on either side of your head, fuck no. Goodbye. Absolutely not.
Yeah, grandma. Why is grandma in your face like that? No, grandma. Like, I don't need any ghostly kisses and hugs and stuff. She just wants to snuggle. Dead grandma just wants to snuggle.
Just
like stroke your hair as you sleep.
Into your bed. It's fine.
No.
It's fine.
I like that. She's just like, it's just grandma. This girl's like, fuck no. No,
That's
grandma.
not grandma wearing a hat. Actually, that one didn't mention a hat. Okay, last one.
Okay.
This is from John. He says, I came home one night from work and sat in my car for a while before going inside, like I would do sometimes. And then I saw at the corner of my eye what looked to be my dad standing just to the left and in the front of my car. So I opened the door and started to get out. And before I could, I was frozen face to face with this shadow figure staring right into my eyes. And I was frozen. I wasn't scared, just frozen and in shock and awe. It felt kind of emotionless, actually. But for like 2 to 3 minutes, I just stared at this tall, dark, shadowy figure. And I thought to try to reach for my phone to shine a flashlight or take a picture without looking away. I couldn't grab my phone, so I looked down for literally 1 second, and I looked back up, and it was gone.
That reminds me of my encounter with a shadow person, which was literally my own shadow that I was staring at. So
but this person's outside. I mean, I don't know how that would happen, but yes, that does.
Yeah,
You're standing there, they're not moving, you're not moving, frozen.
That was exactly. I was just like, oh my God, like because it was there, but it was because it was me.
So good.
Because what happens when you shine a flashlight on a shadow figure, though, right?
Exactly.
They're made of darkness.
Where's that story?
They are the shadow.
They just disappear.
Okay, so in my search for finding how shadow people come to be, we've talked about maybe they're from another dimension, maybe they're an alien visitor. I saw one that was somebody had a childhood friend. This person says that they're a psychic and that they had a childhood friend. I can't remember if they knew it was a ghost at the time, whatever. I think it was a ghost. Let's just say they had a ghost friend that was their imaginary friend. They used to talk to it, wore overalls. It had its own thoughts and opinions, its own stories and everything. And over time, as this person got older, it faded away. This imaginary friend faded away until they were just a shadow. And they were the shadow of this person, which I thought was kind of interesting, right? So are they, or like, is it that whole theory that once the one last person who like remembers you die, like are they
like Coco, the Disney movie?
Oh yeah, Coco, the one with the guitarist. Is that the whole plot to
Mama Coco was the only one who remembered her father. And so the little boy had to remember Mama Coco.
You're
and
right.
sings her the song, and I'm sobbing into my hand and just shaking with tears. Mama Coco, she remembers.
Maybe where I got that theory from. The plot of Coco is that theory that, the ghost, it fades away until the last person dies and then whatever. So, but apparently a lot of people see shadow figures, okay? Not just the Hat Man. People will see shadow figures out of the side of their eyes, the corner of their eyes. They might see them right in front of them. So the possible explanations, just to be a real joy kill, real buzz kill.
No, it is so perfect that I started off with like, these are all of the shadow people. And then you say, these are all of the reasons why they don't exist.
I mean,
okay, let's hear them.
One of the big ones is mental illness. Schizophrenia,
Yeah.
apparently it's very common to have a shadow figure follow you if you're schizophrenic. It's like a very, very common thing. But if you have seen shadow people or you see shadow people, it does not necessarily mean you are schizophrenic. It is just something that is a very common symptom of schizophrenia.
Okay.
And so one person says, my mom has undiagnosed schizophrenia, and she says the shadow people come from a shadow realm, from a different dimension. They started coming to her in her dreams and then began to appear as hallucinations, auditory and visual. And then at my childhood home, we moved because of the portal, quote unquote, portal in her room. Now it's progressed to the point where she believes that they wear skin suits and come into her places of work. And then he says she doesn't keep a job very long for obvious reasons. So that's just like one glimpse at someone who is schizophrenic and their experiences with it. And other people too, same thing, that like they had a girlfriend who kept seeing a shadow person and would get really angry at them when they were like, that there's not a shadow person there. And then they switched up their meds and
no more shadow people.
No more shadow person, to the point that they were like almost upset that they were gone and went looking for them because it was such a permanent fixture in their lives. When it was gone, they almost missed it.
Well, and then the mom story talks about the shadow realm again, like that other
the shadow realm
said too. Yeah.
So then, and almost on the same. No, not on the same note exactly, but sleep deprivation is a very common. So I think the people who are really stressed, if it happens in a lot of times of stress, I know I have trouble sleeping when I'm super stressed. My brain just keeps going, And so someone had said that they have pretty bad insomnia, and when it peaks, they start catching figures in their peripherals, and it doesn't freak them out because they know what it is at this point. They just wish they could sleep better. They know that a lack of sleep brings on the shadow figures.
Yes, I was reading something along the same vein of how a lot of meth heads see shadow people because of the lack of sleep, because you don't sleep when you're on meth apparently, and it causes them to see the shadow.
There were a lot of comments from like meth heads, and amphetamine psychosis is apparently what it's called. And someone says, oh shit, I used to do a lot of amphetamines, just benders, completely alone in the dark for days while drinking whiskey and smoking pot.
Oh my God, how are they alive?
Right? I promise you, any doctor reading this is shaking their heads because it's the roadmap to Psychosis Town. Well, this reminded me of something I had completely forgotten. After a 3-day bender, when the sun started to come up a little in the morning, I would open the curtains and look out at the woods by my house. It was a real pretty view, but more than once I could see a variation of tall, shadowy people standing behind the first row of trees. No eyes, but I felt them staring at me with pure hatred. I didn't dare to close the curtains because it would anger them and they would come inside. Can't imagine experiencing stuff like that on a regular basis, completely sober. I'm fine now, by the way, if you're worried reading this. I am also bipolar, which doesn't mix well with speed. That was another thing with like the bipolar. A lot of people with bipolar would experience it, I think, again, in their manic phases when they're not sleeping. So then... Again, with the sleep deprivation, sometimes it's shadow bunnies darting across the road while I drive, figures coming in and out of the woods, darting towards the car and going back into the woods. It's always when I drive at night and I am tired. The worst one was when I had 2 toddlers. One thought he was allergic to sleep and the other had a stomach bug.
Oh no. Oh, bless her so much.
I hadn't been to sleep in 36 to 48 hours. I was coming home and it was super dark woods all around my house. And then I see off to the side a shadow creature, quote unquote, stand up, probably 8 to 10 feet tall. When I focus my eyes in that direction, he drops to all fours and scurried off across the road into the woods, just out of range of my headlights. This was all about in a 15 to 20 second event. I promptly pull in my driveway 30 seconds later and go straight to bed.
This has me thinking, though, because there is that twilight sleep.
Yeah, the realm between awake and sleepiness.
Yeah, are they so tired that it's like the veil between like shadow world and human world?
It reveals itself.
Ooh,
that is the realm in which I edit the podcast many a night, is that sleep and awake. I'm like, wait, there's
Twilight
something about
editing.
our voices just lulls me right to sleep. Then something will bring me back. I've been in a car with someone who said that too. Like he was driving and he's like, oh my, and we'd been going cross country. It was a really long drive. We were taking shifts and he's like, I just saw 3 little witches run across the street, little witches scurry across the street. I didn't see them, but like he was like, did you see that? Did you see that?
Yeah.
And so, but that was obviously sleep deprivation. One time I drove all the way from Denver back to New York, 24 hours drive straight without sleeping. I was like, I can do this. By the end, like Ohio, Western New York, like this tree, I didn't see shadow people, but like the trees and the bushes on the side of the road were like
moving,
pulsating.
Yeah.
Yes. Like hallucinating. Like it was insane. It was intense. Obviously, I knew I was sleep deprived. That's why I was seeing it, but no shadow people. So then another interesting reason is macular degeneration, or something called Charles Bonnet syndrome.
Ooh.
And it can cause people to see shadowy figures following them around or random colors that aren't there. And this person's grandmother calls them her little visitors. Normally, a person is aware that what they're seeing isn't real, but in my grandmother's case, the dementia made her believe that they were real. It was honestly awful because there's nothing you can say to convince them that the visitors aren't there without causing more distress. So on the same note as that, a stroke can also, like this, maybe this isn't shadow figures. This is just interesting and I have to share it and maybe I'll cut it.
I'm honestly, I am truly intrigued by all of this. It's, the scientific side of why people are seeing certain things.
I know, not certain things. It doesn't necessarily explain the Hat Man, but a lot of these like just kind of anomalies.
Random, anomalies. That's a good word.
So one person says, my mother had a tiny stroke that wasn't diagnosed straight away and it altered her vision. As she was already legally blind, like she just couldn't see really well, she didn't actually notice any changes because her brain just filled in the missing bits. But sometimes it would fill them in wrong. So she'd see flowers in a garden bed that didn't have flowers, or objects as people, and vice versa. She said it was weird because it felt like her vision had gotten better, not worse, but it was just her brain trying frantically to make sense of what information it was getting and filling in the rest. And then she thought she was having a mental breakdown. But I thought that one is like
fascinating.
Isn't that?
Like I would totally do that too. Like sit down and start talking to some, oh yeah, you live around here? And then they're like, why aren't they talking? Oh, it turns out it's like a fire hydrant. Yeah. It's not a person at all.
Right. But the fire. I think that's just fascinating, right? And it makes sense. Your brain just makes sense of whatever it's seeing. Well, it's why, too, everyone's like, there's a face on the moon. Humans want to see faces, everything. They make faces out of everything that they see. So there's a lot of pretty much, were they all medical conditions aside from meth? Well, again, addiction,
Or sleep.
Yeah, or sleep, right? Insomnia or something. But there are like legitimate medical conditions that can cause it. So this is an excerpt from an article on science.org explaining why people see shadow people. The finding emerged by accident. Neurologist Olaf Blank of the Brain Mind Institute in Lucerne, Switzerland, and his colleagues, they're attempting to identify the source of epileptic seizures in a 23-year-old woman. They applied a mild current through surgically implanted electrodes to various regions of her brain. Not much happened until the researchers stimulated the woman's left TPJ, located roughly above the left ear. Suddenly, she reported feeling the presence of a mystery person behind her, a motionless and speechless shadow that imitated her body posture and actions. He lay beneath her when she lay down, sat behind her when she sat down, and attempted to take a test card from her when she tried to participate in a language exercise. Such delusions are similar to those seen in patients with schizophrenia, says Blank. Schizophrenics often mistake their own bodies to be someone else's, for example, and attribute their own actions to others. They also have frequent illusions of being followed or controlled by a stranger, as do those who claim to have been manipulated by aliens.
Ooh, that is fascinating.
Isn't that interesting? It's kind of crazy that they could like replicate it, that like she's just in there for epileptic seizure research and all of a sudden she's got a shadow person who's like mimicking,
lurking behind her every move.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it doesn't ruin, it doesn't completely debunk.
You didn't totally doo-doo on it. Because I mean, shadow figures are very vague and they're all over the map. It is a mist. It is somebody following you. It is someone in the doorway. It could be a dozen different things.
Yeah. No, I had one more. I'm sorry. Can I go? One more. Sorry.
Of course.
Someone says, my doctor asked me if I saw shadow people. I confirmed it. Totally freaked out about how she knew and told her I did. And then she gave me a magnesium supplement and recommended soaking in Epsom salts. She saw the magnesium deficiency in my labs, but the shadow people confirmed it. I haven't had them since I got my levels back to normal. And my psychologist confirmed that I am schizophrenia free. And then someone also commented that their friend with thyroid issues was seeing shadow people and once they got that leveled out.
Ooh, interesting. Everybody go get magnesium.
Right? Yeah. I mean, if you're seeing shadow, I don't know. I don't want to recommend anything. I don't know if can you overdose on magnesium? If you're having a problem with shadow.
Read the label.
But that the doc, like apparently a magnesium deficiency can also cause people to hallucinate shadow people.
Fascinating.
I know. Who knew? This was the most fascinating.
I was really hoping that you were going to say, the doctor said, do you see shadow people? And they were like, yes. How did you know? Because I'm a psychic medium.
Because there's one standing behind you.
Yeah.
No, that didn't happen. But
I wanted to do a quick throwback. So in ancient Egypt, that's when they've been first documented. Their theory in ancient Egypt is that shadow people often went and did the bidding in the spirit world for humans who couldn't reach it, sometimes for good and sometimes for evil. So if you wanted to reach your dead ancestor on the other side, you were like, spirit shadow person, go tell grandma, I don't know. We kept the clock, or I don't know.
It's kind of like a familiar or something,
bidding.
Right?
Yeah,
they do their bidding, but how do you wrangle your shadow person? Do you give it shiny objects? I want to train crows.
Oh yeah, maybe they have the
around
shrines. I don't know enough about ancient Egypt.
I don't know enough about ancient Egypt nor taming shadow people, wrangling them. I don't want to attract shadow people. I'm good. The crows, however,
same.
Come to me.
The shadow crows. Who knows if they're actually real? Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, crows don't really exist. I just see these blackbirds.
Fascinating. All of this is just so fascinating to me and completely, some of it obviously explainable through science, medicine, drugs. But some of it, Hatman, is still completely unexplainable.
That one's interesting. Compelling. The Hatman. Yeah.
If you listeners out there have a shadow figure experience, a Hatman experience, a debunk theory that you want to share with Alissa, write into our email, please.
At skeletalespodcast@gmail.com. If you've ever been on a 5-day amphetamine bender and had an experience with shadow people, call us and tell us about it on our hotline.
If you are currently on a bender, please call the hotline.
Please call. Okay. You only have 3 minutes, so talk fast.
Yeah, real fast.
That shouldn't be a problem.
302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We are also on all of the socials over there, and you can message us through there and also just hang out with us because we've got some awesome content on the socials. Tell your friends.
Yep. Like, share, follow, subscribe, do all those things. Tell your friends. Any way you listen, if you're able to review, those always help us, and leave a comment. So
shit, even just a comment on Facebook. We'll count that as a review.
Heck yeah. 5 stars across the board. Oh shit. Was there anything else? Oh, Britt. One more thing.
Yes. What is it?
Haunt you later.
Haunt y'all later.
Good night.
Good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Good day.
Farewell.
Good day.
Good day to you, madame.